guys, welcome back to our channel. Today we have another comic themed video for you guys. We're trying to put a few more of these out. We enjoy doing them and I'm getting more into comics now. Steven's always been into them and I'm baby stepping into the pool. But we are doing a new kind of series today. If you watched our very first comic haul, we got a bunch of very small issue comics for like 25 cents at a little 25-cent bin at our local comic book store, and we thought it would be fun to do a spin on what is typically a booktube kind of video, and that is, for booktube originally, what you do is you take 5 books and you try the first chapter of each book and then decide which book you want to continue with after that first chapter. So we're doing something very similar with these. Since these are first issues in all of these series, we're going to try 5 of them. Each of us has 5 here from our original haul, and we're going to try the very first issues of all these series, and then we're going to come back and let you know which comic series we recommend you continue with based on our initial reading.
Yeah, so we're going to try and guess which one we'll like the most.
Mm-hmm.
We'll show you guys which ones we chose, and then we'll come back after reading them and tell you which one we're going to continue and which ones we're going to throw in the trash. We did go over every single one of these that we both have in our comic book haul. You guys can check that out up there. We had a lot of them. But we'll go over them right fast again, the 5 that we chose. And the first one I chose was the All New, All Different Avengers. And I'm interested in reading this one. I haven't read any of the All New, All Different Avengers. And the team is just wild, because you have like Lady Thor, Vision, Kamala Khan, you have Falcon, Captain America, Miles Morales. It's a very different Avengers team, and I've heard good things, so I'm interested to see if I'll want to continue reading it.
So the first one I have to try is this one called Snowfall, and it's Weather is a Weapon. So it's set in the year 2045, and it just says weather is a weapon, climate is catastrophe, and terror falls like snow. Beyond that, I know nothing about this, so it sounded like kind of cool superpowers combined with like Frozen, so why not?
I really wanted to choose for my stacks a lot of different comics I wouldn't normally pick up, because I already read the ones that I know I like. And so I actually got the DC Rebirth Superwoman #1. And this is interesting. I've literally never cared about Superwoman at all, or read a single comic. It's like Supergirl is cool,
That's
like
true.
Superman's cool, but like you never hear about Superwoman, so I'm interested to read this. I honestly don't know a whole lot about this character, and we'll see if it's good.
The next one I have is this one called The Precinct, and it's like a steampunk cop vibe thing. I don't know. I just picked this up because the artwork looked kind of cool, and I don't know, steampunk sounds fun, so why not? I don't know.
The next one was another Marvel comic, another team, and this one's The Ultimates. I've heard good things about this one as well.
This one looks cool.
And it also has a different team. Marvel's been trying to branch out and do some different teams, which I like, because you kind of get tired of the same core characters.
Yeah, everybody's familiar with like the typical Avengers teams or stuff like that at this point.
Yeah, so the fact that you have Captain Marvel on here, Black Panther, some other characters, it looks cool. This is another team up where it's like, I don't know a whole lot about this team, and some of these characters I've never read an actual comic for, so I'm interested to see.
So speaking of Captain Marvel, I have a Captain Marvel. This is actually a #0, so it's like a prequel, but I couldn't find the #1 from this, so I'm going to count this as a #1. But I know nothing about Captain Marvel besides like very, very basic things, but I really want to know more about the character before the movie comes out in like, what, 2019, 2020, whenever that ends up coming out with Brie Larson. So this will be interesting to read, and maybe we'll have some perspectives between our 2 comics and the same character.
The next one I have is Justice League of America #1. And this is actually the New 52, so it's before Rebirth. They've done 2 like major reboots of their universe, so this is the first one, not the second reboot. But I saw it #1 for Justice League, and I haven't read a Justice League comic in a while, so I'm interested to see how the New 52 worked out.
Next one I have is also a Marvel, and it is Angela, Asgard's assassin. So she's basically in the Thor realm of thing, obviously, with Asgard, and she just sounds very badass. And like, I think there were 2 different first editions of a series with the same character, and the other one was like deemed her as like the Queen of Hell or something like that. And I was like, okay, I'm in. Yes, please. So it looks cool.
And my last pick is a Star Wars comic. It's actually Lando. I saw this and it seemed interesting. I wanted to pick up, like I said, some different ones that I wouldn't normally choose. So I have like my stereotypical like superhero teams. But I'm interested to see how this one turns out. Lando, some people love Lando. I've never been that interested in him as a character. Don't hate
come
me.
at us
Yeah,
in the comments.
don't at me. But I always felt like Lando serves his purpose, but he's not like that cool of a character compared to some other people in Star Wars. But maybe this will change my mind. We'll see.
This is actually my favorite cover out of all the ones we picked up. I just think it looks cool. The last one I have is this Spider-Woman, and this gives me kind of Jessica Jones vibes from the description, because it's essentially this character whose name is also Jessica. She ended up, like, as a child getting sick, and her father gave her spider blood, which turned her into Spider-Woman, yada yada. She's, like, done all these superhero things throughout her life, so she's been, like, an agent of Hydra, she's been an Avenger, she's been a spy, all these things, and she's decided at this point to put all that aside to be a mom and have a more, like, normal life. So, like I said, gives me major Jessica Jones vibes. So, it'll be interesting. I'm really interested to read about this kind of perspective of a superhero. I feel like we don't get that very often in comics, at least from my familiarity with comics, which, like I said, is very little. But you don't get to see, like, the real life, like, being a mom and stuff like that.
That's
so I think that's really
different
interesting.
Story, yeah. So before we go off and read these, we are going to offer you guys our predictions for what we'll like the best, or I guess what we hope is the best one out of them.
So before you continue with this video, leave your votes down below what you think we'll end up liking best, especially if you've read any of these and really like them. Let us know your predictions, then you can come back at the end of the video and see if you agreed with us.
Yeah, see if you were correct and guessed right. As far as what I think I will like the best, that's tough. I have two. I would say I think I'm going to end up liking the best this all new, all different Avengers, just because I've heard good things. And the team looks cool, and I like Marvel Comics. The one I'm hoping surprises me the most is probably the Superwoman comic, because, like I said, I don't really spend any time with this character. I know nothing about it. So it could be a real pleasant surprise if it's good. And I've heard good things about the Rebirth, so...
Well, since you picked two, I'm also going to pick two. And mine are also of the Marvel genre. So I think that I am going to like the most Captain Marvel, just because I've heard a lot of good things about her character. Not necessarily this series in particular, but it'll just be interesting to deep dive into a unknown character to me. And then I also think I might really like this Spider-Woman one as well. So all the badass ladies, we'll see how it goes.
So like we said, let us know down in the comments below what you think we'll like the best, and we'll see you guys in a minute.
1 week later.
Hey guys, we are back after reading all of our comics, and we are here to share what we thought of all of them.
Yeah, so, yeah, I'll start out. These were interesting. Like I said, you know, I picked some that I had never had any experience with, and I'll just start off with my favorite, and then I'll give ideas.
You're gonna start high? All right. I'm gonna go in the order that I read them.
Okay. My favorite was actually a good surprise, because it's what I wanted. So, if you were watching 3 seconds ago, I actually liked Superwoman the best.
Really?
Yeah, I thought
That's exciting.
Yeah, I thought it was the most interesting, and in this comic, they switch it up. So, Lois Lane and Lana Lang are both...
A lot of L's.
Yeah. But they're both of Superman's old girlfriends or wives. And when Superman dies... Spoilers. It's not spoilers for this comic, it's for the universe. Apparently he dies at the beginning, and it gives a bunch of other people superpowers, and it gave both of them superpowers.
Why does it give other people superpowers?
So, it was the way he, like, blew up. I don't know. I don't know enough. I only read this tiny little comic.
Alright.
But it was pretty cool, and I liked both of their characters, and I enjoyed it. It seemed pretty fresh. And I think, in general, it's fresh to read some good female characters, especially in DC Comics. Because they kind of are hit or miss for me, I think, sometimes with those. And especially a character that I don't care about. They made me care about Superwoman, which is pretty impressive in like 20 pages, so. So
the first one I read was this mystery Snowfall one, which I didn't think I was going to love this one, and I was correct. This one was my least favorite out of all of them, honestly, and I felt like it just didn't really know the direction it was going in, and maybe it would be better, like, farther on in the series, but I feel like as a number one, it didn't really grab my attention enough to want to read more, and it was honestly kind of confusing. Like, you're in this future world where the government, like, controls the weather, but there's also this, like, mysterious character who like pops in and out, who like can control weather, but it didn't make it clear, at least not to me, whether that character was just like a legendary like kind of ghost thing that people just talk about, or if it was someone who's actually like in it. Because when it was like flipping to those parts where it talked about that character, like even like the text box changed and all that kind of stuff, so it seemed almost like it was people talking about this legendary character instead of something that actually interacted with the world. It was weird.
The next one that I liked was actually this Justice League of America. Now, this was different, and I didn't even really look at this cover too in-depth before I read it, which is probably for the best, because it has a bunch of people. I just saw Green Arrow, and I assumed the rest of them were there. But no, you have, like, Catwoman, you have this other rando Green Lantern, you have Katana, you have Vibe from Flash. That's
cast of characters. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was pretty interesting. It turns out it's actually a Justice...
Is this Hawkman?
Yeah. It's actually a Justice League made to defeat the other Justice League.
What's wrong with the other Justice League?
Just in case they go bad, because apparently some stuff is going on in this universe where they're like going
they're the
bad.
Backup.
So they're like, you know, if these guys go south, we need you. And so it's pretty interesting because they're all counters for the individual people on the Justice League. And it's formed by Wonder Woman's boyfriend, ex-boyfriend in this. Steve Trevor. So I thought that was a pretty interesting read. It was definitely a different take, and I think that's what I'm looking for lately with comics, is just a fresher take.
The second one I read was one that I assumed I would really like. This was the one that I think I said this would be my top one, Captain Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
And I was correct. I loved this so much. I was raving to Steven about this as I was reading it. This starts off with like the girl power combo group, which I just am all about. They're like all playing like poker and eating pizza. I love it. So you got Carol Danvers, Jessica Drew as Spider-Woman, Kamala Khan as Miss Marvel, you've got the mighty Lady Thor, and you've got Natasha Romanoff, which is Black Widow. So it was just like such a fun group of girls like hanging out and kicking ass. And I really liked that this comic showed that Captain Marvel can be a very strong kick-butt character, but also have a more sensitive side and the feeling side, and that those are okay and those can both exist in a space. And I feel like that's something that's not shown very often with strong female characters. You're either all badass or all soft, and there's not a good balance of the two, and I think this did this really well. I didn't realize that Spider-Woman and Carol Danvers were like besties. At least in this little run,
that might be fresh. I don't know.
But I adore their friendship, and we'll get more into that later with the Spider-Woman comic.
The next one that I liked was the Ultimates. Now, this is kind of a different team, and there are some people on here that I didn't even know were people. Specifically, this, like, he's not Black Lightning. This guy can, like, manipulate stuff. Overall, for a number one with the team up, I thought it did a good job of introducing each person and their power set, because some of them I didn't know who they were. And some team ups... Sometimes with Marvel Comics, they like to assume that you know exactly who everyone is and their 20 years of backstory. And I like that this didn't assume that, and you actually got to get little introductions to each character. And Captain Marvel's actually in this one, too.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, so
then I picked up the Angela Asgard's Assassin, which I had talked about how this was in, you know, the Thor realm, obviously, with Asgard. And actually, this is like Thor and Loki's long-lost sister. She, like, ends up getting kidnapped or something like that and taken away to a different world or something, and she gets raised as, like, an angel. What did you call them?
Valkyrie?
Valkyrie. And so she gets raised as Valkyrie, and she has a very strong sense of right and wrong and justice. And so this is an example of one of those very strong, badass female characters who do not have a sensitive side, at least not in this issue. And so she was very hard, very black and white, which I think is a Valkyrie thing.
Yeah.
Which is in most iterations of them.
Justice.
And yeah. And so, like, to the point where she, like, saved a infant boy and ended up, like, giving him to someone to care for, and she told those people to tell him that he owes her a debt when he grows up, and to know her name and know that as he grows up, and that ends up coming back around in this comic. And, like, that's just very intense to hold an infant to saving their life. It was interesting. I didn't love the art style of this. Just personal preference. I think it's not a talent issue. It's just my personal preference. It's very dark and very gritty, which usually I like. I think it's the fact that these are more like warm colors, like the oranges and reds, and that's just not really my preferred color scheme. So it's just it's totally a personal preference thing. But it was interesting. I don't think this is something I would continue, though.
My next one was the all new, all different Avengers. Now, I've heard a lot of things about this run, but based on the first issue, I was not super impressed.
Oh no.
Yeah, I wasn't really drawn in. They had some of the banter between the characters and kind of set you up for where everyone left off, but overall it felt a little slow. They didn't even all get together by the end of this, which is pretty interesting considering all of these are established characters at this point, and it just didn't go anywhere. It didn't really get my attention, so I would say that at this time, this isn't one that I would continue unless I could read like a full volume, like several issues in to see if it got better. But just based on the first one alone, I probably would. It was my second to least favorite, so.
So the next one I picked up was this, The Precinct, and it's like a steampunk buddy cop kind of thing going on. And so this was very traditional cop storyline, in my opinion. It's just set in a steampunk world where you've got the hard-ass male cop who's always like the bad cop, I guess, and then he ends up having to work with a female cop who has totally different views from him, and they clash, and it was not original in my opinion, and it's something that I've just seen overplayed. And besides the world being very different and very original to my experience, that part was interesting, but I don't know, it was just a little too cliche for me.
My last comic of the 5 and my least favorite was actually the Star Wars Lando comic.
That's a bummer.
I know, it was a
cool.
bummer. I was hopeful for it, and the cover is cool, and even the art style is pretty cool throughout. It's very similar to the actual cover, but it was boring. And that was my fear going in, because honestly, like I said earlier in the video, Lando has never been that interesting of a character for me, and I was hoping that getting him in comic form maybe would increase that, a different story that is not just what we get in the movies. But the first issue, at least, it was kind of boring. Nothing really happened. I was expecting more to see more of his roguish nature and the action and the fun, which I feel like is kind of iconic Star Wars, is like the fun element and the aliens and the fun adventure. There's no real adventure in this.
It's too serious.
Yeah, most of it is conversation with him and then conversation with the guy he owes money to, and then the start of a heist that turns out to be Palpatine's. Yeah, it was a lot of setup. And I thought it was kind of cliche that like he ends up stealing from Palpatine at the end out of anyone to create like a comic run. I was kind of like, I was more interested in seeing if they come up with a good story in the Star Wars universe, because I love that universe, and I was a little let down. So I don't think I would continue that one.
So my last one was actually a close second for my favorite, which I think I predicted that. It's been a few days since we filmed our first section of this, but that was the Spider-Woman, and this is in the same like universe run as the Captain Marvel one. So this one actually takes place before this one, so I read them out of order, but I didn't know that. So because in this one, Spider-Woman's already had her baby. So this is going through Spider-Woman's pregnancy, and she's pretty far along at this point, so she's to the point where she's having to go on maternity leave and give up her superheroing, and so she's struggling with that a lot and having trouble letting go. And she also is not telling people who the father of her child is, which is interesting. And, you know, Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel, comes back in a few times in this, and I just really like their friendship. It's a really good female friendship. And Spider-Woman's just kick-ass. Like, some dude bro at some point comes up to her at, like, her maternity leave party thing and, like, bugs her about the father of her child, and she, like, tosses cake on his face. It's great. I love it. So I really, really want to pick up the full-size volumes of both of these and read through all of them. So, and any others that are in the same, like, female superhero run.
Yeah, I think out of all of mine, if I were to pick up a run, I think I'd be interested in picking up more of the Superwoman, and in general the DC Rebirth, because I read a lot of the New 52, and I have like a lot of the Batmans from that, but I haven't read any of Rebirth, and I've heard good things, especially about the Superman run styles in it, because they say it's pretty interesting and a good take on those different characters, and so I continued that one, and I do feel like I've heard so many good things about this one that I would have to maybe give it a full chance of more than just a single issue. So that is our Try a Comic. We told you guys our picks for what we like the best out of those. if you have read some of these, let us know in the comments down below what you guys thought about them. I'm sure that you guys have read one of these 10, and if we made the wrong call on one of these series, if you think we should continue it, or if you agree with our decisions, if you guys didn't like the same ones we didn't like, let us know.
If this is a series you like and want us to continue, please give us a thumbs up down below. That lets us know that it's something you guys enjoy watching. If you want to continue watching our content, we have a lot of different kinds of videos. You know, we got comics, movies, TV shows, soon to be video games and board games. Hopefully, we're working on that. And so if you want to check out any of those, please subscribe. We would love to have you join our TheBSReview family. And if you want to check out any of our other videos that we've already done, you can check those out right over here. And we will see you in our next video. Bye.